This being my last Sunday for a year, I wish to leave no doubt in your mind of what I tried to tell you in the last 19 lectures. So I am going to ask a question which you can silently answer yourself. Have you lived this life of yours in such a way that you desire to live it again? Well, if you haven't, you'd better listen very carefully to what I will say this morning. If you have not already started, for may I tell you, the next life is this life. When the eye is opened, you will see it. That man, unless he awakes and changes the tracks of this life, he walks them forever. So if you have not lived this life in such a way that you really desire to live it again, you start now to interfere with these tracks and laying new tracks. Let me give you just one simple little vision. These are all true visions of the speaker. Lying on my bed, suddenly the eye opened, the inner eye opened, and I saw a man, casually dressed in working clothes, walking the sidewalks of a major city. As he came to a hole that was open to receive coal, in fact, the coal had just been delivered, he dropped something from his hand, and bending down instead of picking up the thing, dropped. He picked up huge hunks of coal that were scattered around the hole, and then my vision relaxed. When I reconcentrated the vision, it was on the early part of that scene of the man walking down the sidewalk. He came to the manhole, he dropped as he had in the previous state. Bending down, he picked up the coal as he had done before. Everything was in detail. As I saw it for the second time, I said, now that scene hasn't changed one iota. My attention again relaxed. When I reconcentrated it, it was on the early part of the scene. Now I could prophesy for that man. I knew exactly what he would do every moment of time, right up to that manhole, that he would drop his package and not pick it up, but pick up the coal. I knew he would look into that manhole and then change his mind, either because someone below saw him pick it up and he didn't want the consequences of his action, or else he had a change of heart. But I knew in detail what that man would do. We are walking tracks, and the tracks are forever. And by the mere curvature of time, your next life is this life. You simply replay it. So if you have not so played it that you are proud of it, you start now and you start the change today. We have given you a system by which you change it. For those who haven't heard why I say you walk tracks, you are standing forever in the presence of an infinite and eternal energy. And from this energy, all things proceed. But they proceed according to pattern. Energy is moving in a certain pattern, and you determine the pattern that it takes, for you actually lay down these tracks within you. That energy flows over by the use of your inner conversations. This energy, I call it now mine, follows the tracks laid down in a man's own inner talking. So, if your inner conversations are not what they should be, I ask you today to start carrying on conversations within yourself from premises of fulfilled ideals, the man you want to be, the woman you want to be. If you have failed so far to embody it, now you begin to assume that you are that man, that you are that woman, and inwardly carry on conversations with your friends, those that respect you, or those you want to respect you, and carry on these conversations from the premises that they see in you, the man and the woman, that you want the world to see, just as though you were. And these words, inner words, which are really the breeding ground of future action, will lay down new tracks, and then the energy which is always flowing will flow over these tracks, and the conditions and the circumstances of life will change. If you do not lay new tracks, I will prophesy for you. You will find yourself repeating it but you will not know. You've done it before. If I could only take you now into the inner vision with me and show you this room rising, everything rising in detail, like a three-dimensional curtain, ascending. But everything is moving up, and yet it remains. It is so altogether automatic that it ascends every moment of time. The whole world is ascending. And as it ascends, the world remains the same. It's almost as though not a thing has happened, and so you can't see it. But if the inner eye opens, you see it ascend. And as it leaves off, that which begins is the duplicate, the perfect duplicate of the thing that rose, and it rises in a three-dimensional manner. So that when a man goes over these tracks, he is totally unaware that he has walked them forever. So I bring you a message to make you conscious. Man must awake from the dream, where he is simply an automaton. He moves like a machine, then he begins to awake, and when he awakes, then he is not that man at all that he seemingly in the past played for eternity. He awakes into a new being, a new man. Now the new man is a man of new conversations. As told you in Ephesians, put off the former conversations. They belong to the old man that is corrupt, and put on the new man by a transformation of mind. And the new man is identified with completely new words. He speaks only the kind things. He is incapable of any unlovely thought in the world. He is incapable of even listening to the unlovely, for inwardly he speaks only the kind, only the loving things of the world. Then he finds himself awakening a man within that was asleep. He awakens the second man, which is called Christ Jesus in the Bible, which I tell you now is your own wonderful, loving imagination. When imagination awakes, it is incapable of being exercised in any way outside of the loving way. So every time you use your imagination lovingly, you are literally awakening this inner man, and you're mediating God to man. If I think of anyone in a loving way, I'm in contact with that being, and God flows toward him. Now, because this is my last Sunday, I will give you what I gave the class last Friday. Do not see it just as some metaphorical picture. See it as an actual picture. Imagine yourself at the very base of a wonderful waterfall, and that water is flowing beautifully on you. And imagine it's flowing through you, and now from you, and flowing towards someone you think of. I make this statement because it's a true statement. We are now in Eden, but we are asleep, as told you in the 2nd of Genesis. Man went sound asleep when he was placed to dress it and to keep it. To awake, do this. Just imagine yourself the center through which water radiates, and everyone in this world is rooted in me and ends in me as I am rooted in and end in God. So I am in God's garden. It's Eden. But in God's garden, every man in the world has a plot, a little garden. In that garden, there are trees that grow. You can see them. If I look at this man now and inwardly look at his plot, in my garden, I will see the trees. Some will be called health. Some I call wealth. The tree of dignity, the tree of nobility, the tree of being wanted. They may be withered. They will never really die, but they may be withered. They are in need of water. Just imagine that you are watering that plant and see in your mind's eye the leaves appear on what formerly was a barren plant. See the fruit appear, and wherever he is in the world, as you water his garden, which really is your own garden, as you water it, he will embody the very qualities that the tree is now beginning to bear and radiate. You name the tree, whatever you name it, that it is. And you name this one if you know he is unwanted. He wants to be wanted. You name it and let the water flow towards it. Imagine it's growing healthily in that garden, and see it put out its leaves, and see it put out its fruit. Wherever he is in the world, he will begin to be wanted by people in his world. If he is unemployed, it's a tree of employment, and see it radiate its leaves and radiate its fruit. He will be wanted, and he will be gainfully employed. I tell you, this is not just an idle statement. Everyone here can do it, and everyone should do it. And whenever you water the tree in anyone's garden, at the same time, you are watering your own garden in the eternal one of God. For I am the vine, and ye are the branches. Every man can say the same thing. So as you rise here, there are 2,600 of you. You individually are the central vine of God's garden, and everyone in your world is a branch in that vine. So when I, as a central vine, water a branch in my garden, at that same moment, I am being watered, and my garden is being watered in your wonderful garden. I don't have to water my own. Just by taking care of the many gardens in God's Eden, I take care of my own garden that is in the vine of everyone in the world. You try it, and you can bless everyone in the world, and then eventually the eye opens, the ear opens, the inner man awakes, and you see the most glorious world, which is always here to be seen. Only we in our sleep had shut it out. We shut the whole wonderful golden world out by going to sleep and becoming an automaton. But take me seriously, for your next life is this life. You make this life what you want to make it. Because if you don't, you will find yourself automatically, and you won't even know it. Because as a sleeping person, you don't know you are walking the same track. But if I could only take you within me and let you see with the eye of the inner eye and watch these automatons in the world, sleeping people. Yes, the eye is open and they seem to be awake, but they're really sound asleep, for they're repeating the same thing. Now become conscious. As you become conscious, you enter the most glorious circle of awakened humanity. I call it the conscious circle of humanity. Or as my old teacher used to call it, the brothers. It simply means the awakened man. And when he awakes, they're all glorious beings, for they are all the image of the Divine One. So try it today with the art of revision. At the end of this day, review today. If some unlovely thing in the day, don't allow it. You rewrite it. Take that same scene and rewrite it. And having rewritten it, replay it. In your imagination, you imagine the action to be unfolding, and you replay everything in the world. As you replay it, as you ought to have played it the first time, you've changed it. And the moment is never receding, as people think. The moment is advancing. Now, this may seem an insane statement to tell you, that yesterday is today's future. It seems insane. You think it's not. It's past. But by the curvature of time, you will discover, but you will not know it, because you will be asleep unless you begin to awaken, and you will come upon what is yesteryear in your future. For the moment is never receding. It is always advancing into the future to confront us. And so, if you don't change it, you will simply find yourself repeating over and over what, luckily in God's infinite mercy, that sleep shuts out the memory of it. So you are doing it, and you think you're doing it for the first time. But I ask you to awake for the purpose of this platform. It's to awaken everyone who comes here, that we may all enter this brotherhood of awakened humanity.